Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to another episode of Coruscant Radio Underground on the Science Fictionary. Uh, Sorry about the echo there. So we are back to talk about the Mandalorian, chapter 21.
That's
What
true.
was the name? The Pirate. Chapter 21, The Pirate. So that's where we're at. I'm gonna change a couple things and give everybody just a second, see if anybody jumps in here and put up all the appropriate put that right there.
Oh, that's not a good call.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put that down here. No, can't put it there because then it's in the way of people talking. Maybe right here.
Putting it between the slow.
No, okay.
Mandalorian original.
I'll put it over there. Uh, all right. So another fun episode of the show. I'm just I don't know. I'm seeing so much hate for this show, and it's coming from weird places too. It's not just, you know, let's see. Let me find a couple screenshots that I took earlier today. So the Rolling Stone says there's perhaps a limit to how many stories Favreau and company can tell that are just about Mando and Grogu saving each other, but the narrative pendulum may be swinging too far in the other direction. Look, that I've been calling this since season one that this was always where this was headed. There was, and it wasn't like it was some like out of left field prediction I was making. It was as simple as looking at the story they were setting up and knowing what Dave Filoni wants to accomplish.
Yep.
And the fact that John Favreau also loves Mandalorians.
Yep.
Like this is
Which
always
is
where it
why
was
he
headed.
wrote a story called The Mandalorian to pitch to Lucasfilm.
Yeah. Um, I say Forbes has one that's the Mandalorian is finally getting good now that season 3 is almost over. I'm sorry, this episode, yes, this episode was good. This was one of the best ones yet, but you don't get this episode without the setup of the previous episodes. You have to set this stuff up. Like then there would be then there would be fit throwing about, well, where did this come from?
Mhm.
Like how did this happen if we never saw this? Well, you'd complain if you didn't get the setup, but now it's mind blowing to me. But
So The Mandalorian, it went for too long being almost universally well liked. And that's against the rules. We can't just like things.
well, it's like we talked about last night on the science fictionary episode we recorded, where people are already like it was the Brendan Fraser Renaissance, and now people are already turning on Brendan Fraser and talking about how he didn't deserve that Oscar and this and that, and it's like people just there are some people that just don't want to be happy. Um, but it's so I've talked to a couple of people, like I'm seeing in certain circles outside of our circle that people are loving the show, and specifically talked to a friend who is he's not like the most casual Star Wars fan ever because he watches all the stuff, but he's compared to us and most of you who are going to be watching this is a casual Star Wars fan. He actually thinks this is the best season of the show so far
Really?
because he never had this inclination that the Mandalorian is the whole story, that we're just going to tell a story about this one character every week.
Right.
He always looked at that as we're setting up something big, but when's it going to happen? And so now it's starting to happen.
Right.
And so now he's finally getting more into the show than he ever has been, because the way he sees it is that things are beginning to be fleshed out and to move forward and happen. And I agree. I think I said it last week. We're in the middle of a transition um, from a show about two characters to, we always had some side characters, but we're becoming an ensemble piece now.
Yeah,
And they
for
told
sure.
us that early when Katie Sackhoff was listed, the way she's listed in the credits. now just tells us this is an ensemble piece now. They might as well call it the Mandalorians.
Mhm.
That's where we're at. That's the story. Um,
Sorry.
and so we're doing this thing where the story is being branched out. I've also seen some talk, some friends of ours on Twitter that they're um I don't disagree with the premise of what they're saying, but that they keep saying it should be obvious by now that the Mandalorian refers to Bo-Katan. It's like, okay, so she might be the new Mandalore.
Mhm.
She might be the leader of the Mandalorians when this all shakes out,
Mhm.
but we still see her and Din both taking leadership roles.
Mhm.
Right now, we have four people that have some level of authority here, and that being Din, Bo-Katan, the Armor, and Paz Vizsla,
Mhm.
which is important because they may all be from. They appear to all probably be from four different tribes or clans. Um, and Clan Vizsla is a very important clan. So those four seem to be shaping. Paz Vizsla even finally gets his hero moment.
Mhm.
He kind of had a little one in season one when they show up to
Mhm.
save Mando and Grogu, but
Mhm.
um, but he gets a full on hero moment in the middle of this fight with the pirates. But
Man, like he shows and like he should. I just when we were watching it, I looked at Andrew and I said, "You forget how big this guy is. I mean, all these people, the stump people and their armor, and they all doing and then he like shows up and he's like just
yeah,
towering
I don't know who's
giant,
actually I don't know who's actually in the armor for those scenes, but it's a big dude.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think he has done the the he's been in the suit for the character a few times, right?
who, Favreau?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if Favreau's ever actually been in the suit. I think it's real easy to forget that we very rarely actually see Pedro
Hmm.
in the suit. Like,
Yeah.
we're almost always looking at a stunt double
Hmm.
in the suit, because that was that was always the way it was, and it's probably even more that way now
He's doing
that
Last
he's
of
doing
Us.
two shows, right? So, um, and I don't know, it was either Hot Toys or one of the other figurine companies just did a Paz Vizsla. I don't know if it's out or coming out, but
Hmm.
it looks like John Favreau. So you can take the helmet off, it looks like John Favreau. So
That's great.
but yeah, I don't know if they've ever told us who's actually in that armor. It would be cool if it's John Favreau. John Favreau's a big guy, but I don't know if he's quite that big.
Okay.
Um
Now they can always force perspective it if they decide to do that.
right. Um but I think so as far as what I've seen about, oh, she's actually the Mandalorian, the titular character. Like, no, it's the Mandalorian, because we still call him the Mandalorian. In almost every episode, somebody refers to him as the Mandalorian. The whole first season,
He
he
was
was
just named
credited
that.
as the Mandalorian.
Hmm.
So he is the title character, right? Like, but that doesn't, like like I said, that doesn't mean anything. He's our main character. The whole People forget that the whole first season we didn't get names for anybody
Right.
hardly. They were we did
We got
we
titles.
Right, we did the Western trope where everybody's kind of gets a title rather than a name.
The doctor,
Right.
the sheriff, the
So
marshal.
it's like he is the Mandalorian. When we say the Mandalorian, we're definitely Din Djarin is still our main character. We're going to experience all of this through his perspective, at least to some extent. We're getting a little more perspective here, which is good,
Hmm.
because it allows you to begin to flesh things out. Um, I actually kind of hope at some point we get some sort of episode from the armorer's perspective.
Yeah.
Um, some flashback with the armor or something.
Hmm.
But I think that it's really, um like I said, you could easily call the show The Mandalorians now and not skip a beat, because that's what it's becoming.
Hmm.
But let's get into the episode. Given everybody, we've just kind of run around here talking about random things about the episode, but let's get into specifics. What did you think about the episode overall? Where would you kind of fit this into the season as far as?
I mean, it was a really great episode. It was a top notch. Mandalorian episode. I think this may have been my favorite episode of the season so far.
Yeah.
I feel like they're doing a really nice job, kind of pulling a lot of things together. At this point, which I feel like it's time to do.
Yeah. So, we don't have any idea how long this show will run. I mean, this could be a 10-season show. Obviously, you don't want them to rush towards the end so rapidly that they don't know where to go with it from there.
Right.
But I think we're seeing some really cool things. I think we're going to talk about specifics from the episode in a minute, but obviously we're hurtling towards going back to Mandalore, and the Mandalorians beginning to all come back to Mandalore. And I really like this because what I have lobbied for in Star Wars storytelling, what Star Wars storytelling really needs, because I feel like, and this isn't even necessarily a knock against the sequel trilogy, but it's just kind of sets up this weird 30-year stretch of time where nothing big can really happen inside the Republic. Like, you can only have so much really happen there. Basically, you have this ineffectual government that can't actually do anything. We get in this episode a drop that the New Republic can't even protect the mid rim from the pirate nation.
Much less the outer rim.
So, like, the outer rim's like really just the wild, wild west now. And so I don't know. I don't know. I don't want them to. I just I don't know. I'm not sure that I want it to progress too rapidly, but we're definitely heading towards Mandalore. And what I really want to see is I want to see other powerful entities rise up in the galaxy to fill the power vacuum. Like, what I hope to see is a Mandalore that begins to have a resurgence and is unaffected. Like, they begin a resurgence and they're mostly unaffected by the rise of the First Order. That so that by the time we come out of that war, that we have a powerful Mandalore over here that is able to become another player, so that as we see whatever the next iteration of the Republic looks like, I want to see, with it being and obvious that the Republic it can't figure out how to really build control. We don't know what the next iteration of that's going to look like.
Right.
And I hope that it's more like confederations, multiple confederations, rather than one central government for the galaxy.
Yeah.
I think you set up a lot more interesting things. I think that the Jedi can be far more interesting if you have Jedi existing in these different federations, and and kind of being the peacekeepers between these groups.
Right.
I think is a better role to kind of rebuild the Jedi. And I think that Mandalore could come out of this as one of the more powerful uh, systems,
Independent systems.
and I think that's really exciting. That's kind of, we get a lot of really cool Mandalorian stuff in the expanded universe. We're sort of starting to build a parallel where some of that stuff can actually happen now, and there are things from the EU that we can take those stories and we can bump them 35 years into the future and do them after the sequel trilogy, because we just have to change some characters around. Obviously, the having Han and Leia and Luke ship has sailed. We can still bump it ahead and have have a lot of new characters. And so,
or even bring in Ray or Finn or one of your.
well, and we're not building this Grogu character up to have him die at some point here. I don't like, we might see, there's a lot of these characters we could see die. Bo-Katan could die in this. Din Djarin could die in this. Like, we could see a lot of characters die. I don't think we're going to see Grogu die.
I think we're going to see. I kind of feel like maybe we're setting Ragnar Vizsla up to be the next power after Bo-Katan, because I think bringing the power background to the Vizslas would have some kind of poetic justice to it.
Possibly. I mean, I that's certainly a possibility. Although at this point, that kid seems to be a liability.
Right? He's
um,
got luck about as good as yours.
Nothing large
Something will
tried to
go
eat me lately,
wrong.
though.
It will.
Right. But yeah, I mean that's certainly possible, but we don't really know where Bo-Katan's story is headed. We don't even know if she is the future ruler of Mandalore. Just because she's the one to unite the clans doesn't mean that she's the future ruler of Mandalore.
Mhm.
But we're going to get all we'll get into a lot of that. The kind of the two big topics I want to cover at the end are the um, oh, there's Roe. Roe, are you still at C2E2? But the we'll get into those. There's a couple of topics that I want to cover at the end of the episode that are kind of the big, kind of the meat of what this
The
episode's
theme,
about. Yeah.
thematic issues. In traffic now. Ugh. Fun.
Um, so we open up the episode. We're going back to Navarro. Navarro is becoming a really important place in these stories, which is good. It's a new place. We do go there a lot,
Mhm.
but it's not Tatooine again. So that's
Yeah.
something, because there was always the possibility. We actually theorized at one point during Book of Boba Fett that Tatooine could actually be what Navarro has ended up being
Mhm.
to the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this was a better move.
Mhm.
Um, but the let's see, that doesn't look like the beginning of my notes. Oh, it is. Oh, so we open up on um Navarro again. We get to see the prosperity is continuing and it's speeding up. It's actually happening at a faster
Mhm.
pace. We see um oh, what's his name? Grief Cargo with his engineers planning the city.
Yes.
And
He even refers to them as engineers. All right, engineers. We'll get back to this later.
right. Uh but Gorian Shard shows back up. I think Gorian Shard is a really, really fun character. I know some people don't like the way he looks, but
He looks like a Muppet.
well, he looks a little muppety, but he's also clearly inspired by, kind of like Blackbeard or and a little bit maybe Davy
Oh,
Jones.
very Davy. Like the first time I saw him, I was like, "Oh, it's Space Davy Jones from
He it,
Pirates of the
right.
Caribbean."
I think that's because it's not real, but I
Mhm.
think that like
But like
when
the
right, but when they did Blackbeard on those, like I think he reminds me of Blackbeard. Is of all the pirate stuff that I've read and studied and watched and looked at, the character reminds me a lot of Blackbeard.
yeah,
And then of course we have his first mate that is clearly Shmi.
like I saw him, I was like, "Oh, they've got Mr. Smee." Right, 100%. Like not even kind of.
Rose says Star Wars is Muppety. Star Wars has
Yes,
always been a little bit Muppety.
absolutely. Especially since we got Yoda.
Well, I mean, like go back to the first movie. I mean, you don't
That's
have to
true.
get to Yoda. Just go back to the cantina.
Hmm.
Star Wars has always been a little bit Muppety.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that. Like that's
Even
just
Jabba was a big old puppet.
right. Uh, but I really like the Corsair. I'm a little sad they blew it up. I kind of was hoping they would capture it.
Hmm.
Um,
I
but
know.
cool, another cool ship, another nod to some expanded universe stuff.
Hmm.
And just a cool looking ship overall. But I like this. We get this drop. We get this piece of information that there's something actually going on out there that is
Hmm.
going to play a big role. We get this mention. It's not. I don't even think it's going to have anything to do with this show. We get this mention of the pirate nation,
Hmm.
which is fun. Of course, that's another the idea of a pirate nation is another nod to history. Um, yeah, for sure. Um, it depends. Did Hondo go back to his pirating ways after Rebels?
I don't know.
Is Hondo Onaka the Pirate King?
I mean, It could happen.
So I kind of think that Hondo's not going to be involved. Right now, I'm getting the impression. I think the impression they gave us in this through Carson Teva is that the pirate nation is being used and manipulated by the First Order, or the remnants of the Empire, what will become the First Order. That they're basically someone behind the scenes is pulling strings to keep the New Republic off balance.
Well, I mean, isn't that kind of what I didn't read just a whole bunch of those High Republic books, but that's kind of what they had going was the pirates. You know, there's a lot going on
In the High Republic books, I don't remember pirates in any of the High Republic books I read.
Yes, the pirates were like one of the main.
There were pirates in the life in what's his name's trilogy, the Aftermath trilogy. There were pirates.
No, it was the hyperspace pirates and the.
Yeah, I must not have gotten that far because I haven't made any secret about it. I really don't like the New Republic, the High Republic books.
Yeah, Light of the Jedi, I think.
I don't think so because I read that one.
No, it wasn't Light of the Jedi. I don't remember. One of them dealt with pirates. Oh yes, Marcion Rowe. That was his name. Which is shocking that Rowe remembered that.
Of course, those are pirates several hundred years before our current.
Yeah, but it seems like a similar, like they're.
Well, the idea that there's pirates out there is not. I mean, that's not even a little bit far fetched. I mean, it's just like on our real oceans, we had pirates in every corner of the planet.
And still do in some parts of the world.
Still do. So it's going to be
to see if we get some privateers.
Well, and that's what I mean. When you look at the history of pirates, they did attempt to form their own nation, but the truth is they were largely used by different governments. The Portuguese, the English, the French, the Spanish. They were used by those governments to basically be a wrench in everybody else's. They were.
Even the Americans. Jean Lafitte had an American privateer's license.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were basically just became thorns in competing nations' side. So the idea of having pirates that are out there
and personal pirates.
Yeah. And so the idea that the Imperials are somehow funding part of what's going on with the pirates out there is not that far-fetched. And eventually, and I don't even think in this show, eventually we're going to find out who's running that stuff. I actually kind of wonder if Skeleton Crew might be where we find out a lot more about the pirates. I think that's going to be the case. I don't think we're going to see pirates that are running things in the mid rim suddenly coming out to the outer rim to try to take little backwater planets, except they could come to Navarro because obviously it's important.
Move your seats here.
And that was kind of the thing. So what I mean, we've kind of already talked about it, but the note I had here was, what is the pirate's purpose in all of this? I mean, do you have any other thoughts on that?
I mean, I think the fact that they had a character say, this doesn't seem like a coincidence. Generally, whenever you have characters who are well connected, who say things like,
no, it's
convenient.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like the Chekhov's gun thing. Like we don't have characters say things like that just to throw it away. And Filoni never does. Filoni will drop things and not do anything with it for 2 or 3 seasons. So who knows there? But we move on from there to a Delphi base, I guess, is what we're going with. The headquarters of the Spinward Patrol. We've gotten the name drop of a Delphi base and Spinward Patrol, assuming they're the same thing. Carson Teva is our window into this, but he's great. So what did you think about the base? See, I find it interesting that they're just stuck on a planet. There's no capital ship in sight. They're just sort of a outpost with no backup and no help. I mean, they're limited supplies and just waiting for orders that never come.
Yep. It's kind of your classic like I get a very a really similar vibe to Scotty in the first Star Trek movie, 2009 Star Trek movie. Yeah, he's been sent out to like the end of nowhere to sit and freeze because he
Yeah.
accidentally um, lost a beagle. I wish he'd actually lose my beagle.
Well, you'll have to, figure out how to transport a beagle from one planet to another.
But yeah, I think you're right, Ro. They seem to just kind of be pencil pushers at this point. They just kind of and
Well, they're out there. We see them coming and going on patrols, but like,
Mhm,
it's like, they're not going to get any help.
mhm.
And
So what's
they,
even the point? Like we're patrolling so that we can say, "Oh, this is a problem," for them to go. Meh.
well, this is what happens with large bureaucracies
Mhm.
as things get just kind
The
of lost in the
Vogons.
shuffle. Like,
That's what
obviously
happened.
there's a purpose for them to be there,
Right.
but they're really ineffectual. And we've seen that. We've seen that again. We've seen that in our own history here in this country, where we've sent soldiers to all parts of the world to fight, in police actions, really,
Mhm.
and not let them do anything. We just
Yeah.
send them over there and kind of forget about them.
Mhm.
And so this is, what they are. These are soldiers. We've stuck them out there with a purpose, but
Yeah,
the
they're theoretically peacekeepers at this point,
well,
but
that's what they are. I mean, that's why the Mandalorians refer to him as Blue.
mhm,
That's just he's a police officer at this point.
mhm. With no resources and whenever something does happen, where they can go, oh well.
Right.
I have to say though, I was is it Tim Meadows?
Tim Meadows.
That was great. Um, like whenever we saw him, I was like, oh yes.
Well, no, I mean, if you wanted,
The incompetent bureaucrat,
mm,
he has. I mean, he has mastered the incompetent bureaucrat.
yeah, no, I mean, like the only person I could think of that would have been just as good in that role as just the incompetent bureaucrat would have been Steve Carell.
Oh God.
Um, right though,
Yeah.
it's like just it's like I know some people are like, well, that was stupid. And it's like, well, his character's useless.
Yeah.
Like he's he did a really good job of portraying that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is our picture of how incompetent people are running the New Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And the length, I mean, they're so incompetent, they're just taking advice from there's really not even any concern about this former imperial in their midst giving advice and stepping up and immediately saying, oh, well, they're not a member state, so maybe we should just let them learn
Yep.
the hard way. And it's like,
That's
um
cool.
and it makes you wonder, because this is just our one little slice of a picture into the government, and so you have to assume she's not the only imperial
Mm-hmm.
that has gotten a foothold
Mm-hmm.
in the government and is kind of controlling things.
Yeah. And it's
And so
very.
far, Carson Teva is the only character we've seen call anybody out on it.
Mm-hmm. It's like.
Like, he smells it on her from the start.
Uh huh. Well, and also, you know, they're like they're asking us for help. So, from a diplomatic point of view, you can be like, okay, either A, they're not our problem, or B, let's help them so that then they want to join us, right?
Right.
Or I kind of thought that maybe they were going to be like, sure, if they'd like to sign the charter, you know, we'll wire it to them. As soon as they sign it, we'll send somebody in, which would also be a really typical kind of move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
So I appreciate, that's the thing is, again, this is Filoni and Favreau doing things to help make the sequels make a little bit more sense.
mhm. Well, I mean, it's such a huge. The thing was, the Republic was huge, and bloated, and had become ineffectual, which is why there was a separatist alliance to start with.
Right.
Like, obviously, there's a lot of things going on, and Sidious has been manipulating the separatist alliance. But especially in the Clone Wars, it sort of explores some valid um, some valid reasons some of these systems have for leaving.
Yeah.
Because the Republic isn't working, in spite of all the idealistic, starry-eyed dreams of some of your core world senators, and honestly, your idealistic senators who think that democracy is really the answer to the problem, are all from core worlds. They're from places like Naboo. They're from Chandrilla. They're from, all of the ones that we see, Alderaan, right? All
Yeah.
of these places are, um, they are the places that the Republic is most likely to help if they need it. It's kind of, you know, it's like, like
Well,
living in Mississippi, and it's easy to be like, oh no, like clearly there's no problems in Puerto Rico,
yep.
like that's easy for you to say.
Right.
you
Hey
know
Nick, thanks for dropping in.
Hey, it's Nick. How's it going?
I'm sure Nick is still at work, but
Yes.
hopefully he'll be able to hang out with us for a few minutes. Um, but yeah, it's the whole thing is they're giving us a picture of a very very broken governmental system, which is important because we're kind of reestablishing this because when you go back and look, for all of us who grew up with the expanded universe, we saw a strong government formed
Right.
with real purpose.
Hmm.
But this is a government that basically just said the empire is vanquished. We just go back to our old ways,
Hmm.
but without even really the infrastructure to do it.
Right. Well, and we were actually talking. I was talking with one of the kids about this earlier. Like, it's easy to come in and make huge sweeping um political changes, even political changes that are important. But if you don't have the infrastructure to deal with the fallout, then it's it only does so much good. Then it creates a lot more. It creates a lot of problems down the road.
Right.
And it's, I mean, you could even make comparisons like from the Civil War. Like, there were a lot of things during the Civil War, um like, obviously emancipating slaves was an important humanitarian thing that, like, needed to happen, but there was no infrastructure for how to help these people um work, like, and live. There was no solution for how to help all of these people whenever you change the system. And I feel like that's a lot of what happened. Is like, they did an important work. It was the right thing to do, but they did not do the groundwork. They did not do the work to deal with the fallout of destroying the empire.
Right.
And so basically they're just like, new government, but
But the new government's the same old, same old.
yes,
It's the same people.
it's the same people. Yeah.
Um, so
Mhm.
so as far as that, like, so we see in the so what happens in the expanded universe is that it takes a while to kind of build the new government,
Mhm.
and that there people like Leia are out there like saying, look, we're rebuilding this thing and we want you to be part of it, going to different planets where it takes years to reestablish the republic. But in this variation of the story, we go, ding dong, the empire's dead, we're the republic again.
Right.
Like, so it's but no, if the first order, if the sequels, if you just said if the sequels had never happened, then I don't think this is the way we're going. I think we're following a model much more similar to the EU than what we're doing now.
Mhm.
But because we do have the sequel trilogy, we're now getting
Intermediate.
we're getting this intermediate era where the government's just crap, and uh completely ineffectual.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think we're getting this version directly because of the sequel trilogy, but I think it's the only option because I don't think there's any sense in building a supposed, a strong republic
Mhm.
only for them to be slapped down by an upstart
Mhm.
empire 30 years later.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that that's just sort of the situation they kind of created. And to their credit, there, I think it is an interesting story. It's an unfortunate story, and I feel okay. So it makes me feel a little bit like so the we took a road trip yesterday, and my son loves Thor Ragnarok. Like watches it, watched it literally twice yesterday on the way down and on the way back. When it gets to the end, and Thor walks through and he sits down on the throne. He's like, "All right, here's what we're gonna do," and you're like, it's like all this build up to this moment where you're like, finally, all right, Thor is the king of the Asgard. He's gonna make good decisions. They're gonna find a new home, and then the next movie they're like, never mind.
Yeah.
They just completely undo everything that they did. Kind of all the emotional stakes for Ragnarok, they completely just decimate in the first 5 minutes of the next movie.
Right. And
Um,
that's the thing is I don't like what the sequel trilogy necessarily means for this 30-year intermediate period. However, I do think that the writers of this show are doing a really good job of dealing with it and helping make it make sense.
yeah, and I think that that's true. I think that even though it's like this isn't what you wanted to see, right, as a result of all the pain, sweat, and tears that all of your favorite Star Wars characters went through. Um, Hopefully they will, like you said, hopefully they will decide in the kind of stories going forward to do. Okay, so now we've learned from the mistakes, right, that we made last time we overthrew the evil empire. Now we're going to do a better job this time. So hopefully
Right.
they at least be able to
So
get that.
I'm curious to see when it comes about again, when we finally move into a post sequel trilogy era,
Mhm.
will we have a republic?
Yeah,
Or are we going to have a whole bunch of different confederations?
yeah.
Which is what I would rather see for a while.
Mhm.
Maybe you have a group of core worlds that are calling themselves the Republic, and maybe they begin to build. We see a new republic build slowly.
Mhm. And take time to do things right.
Right.
And don't decommission their entire fleet.
Right.
Just,
Well, that's the
just.
thing. We end the sequel trilogy. There is no Republic fleet. There is no Republic.
Mhm.
There's no Republic fleet. There's no Imperial fleet.
Mhm.
It's all gone. We've wiped the board clean.
Mhm.
So I have no idea what a post. Um, so there are stories in the expanded universe, and then there are stories with the Thrawn prequels where we deal with a threat from beyond known space.
Mhm.
So I think for me, that's what I think makes the most sense in a post sequel trilogy
Mhm.
world is that we now have the known regions of space are weakened.
Mhm.
There's no great galactic wide military.
Right.
They're weak, and now's time for an outside threat to become a problem.
Yeah. So here's the demilitarization of the New Republic. So
Mhm.
so that is an existing trope.
Yeah, that's not
So
a
so basically, it's just they're taking it in a different direction. It's not like
right.
demilitarization
Well,
for the
in
sake
the
of peace. It's demilitarization for the sake of you know.
well, I've said for a long time the sequel trilogy did borrow from the expanded universe.
Mhm.
They kind of decommissioned the fleet, and Thrawn shows up.
Okay.
Now that happens way sooner than this 30-year mark.
Mhm.
That happens within like 5 years.
Right.
But this era we're playing in right now would be the Thrawn era,
Mhm.
and we're fixing to actually get Thrawn in this era.
Yeah.
So I am really curious to see what they're going to do there. But the problem is Thrawn can't become too big of a
Mhm.
threat
Right.
because for Thrawn, Armoff Gideon to become too big of a threat means that the Republic begins rebuilding a military,
Mhm.
which I think is a problem if that starts to happen at this point. So it's gonna you're almost gonna have to have the Mandalorians take care of the problem, which is probably where we're headed.
which should make for good TV.
Yeah. So oh, we need to back up for just a second and talk about Zeb. Um, kind of a non-fanfare introduction of one of our Rebels characters,
Hmm.
but he's going to be in the new show that's coming up, so they'll get their big moments. But the character looks absolutely incredible.
Absolutely did an amazing job with the VFX on Zeb.
I was blown away, and like, of course, he first shows up, and you go, "Is that Zeb or not? Is that Zeb or is it
Because we know there are more of them.
right?" The Lasat, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, it's like, is this Zeb or just some other Lasat? But we know there's not a lot of Lasat around at this point.
Hmm.
And then he opens his mouth and speaks, and you go, "Oh my God, it's
Hmm.
uh
Definitely
yeah, was it Steve Blum?"
him. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he opens his mouth and you go, "Oh my God, it's Zeb." And like, yeah, it's just cool that he's there. Like, but mostly especially coming out of the Kenobi series where we were not thrilled with the way some characters looked.
Hmm.
The Inquisitor in particular just didn't look right. He didn't look like the animated version. He didn't look like, and I know people are like, well, it's a transition from animated to live, but we have characters of that species in the prequels
Hmm.
in live action, and he doesn't look like them at all.
Right.
So, we were very disappointed in that. And game render engine tech, that's possible. I think we'll have to see more of it to know, but I do feel like there is now the game render engines have gotten so complex that I feel like a lot of times the stuff for the Bad Batch is being done with some sort of game render engine. If they figure that out, that's way easier than having to like animate everything. That solves a lot of those problems.
Hmm.
When you look at things like Apex Legends and the things they do where they use their engine to render stories
Hmm.
in between seasons, and you go, "Wow, this is absolutely incredible." The what you can do with a game engine has come a long, long way. So I don't know if it's purely a game engine. I kind of think it's not. I think that there's still some ILM stuff going on there, but I think that the line is blurring there, and so yeah, they may be using some game engine tools to help render characters into 3D space.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Um, but no, that was exciting.
Hmm.
And so now I'm kind of wondering, like, when are some others going to start showing up? I
Hmm.
think it's not where I expected Zeb to pop up.
Hmm.
At this point, you wonder why, if Zeb is still around,
Hmm.
then um why is he here and not with the rest of the crew?
Hmm. Yeah, I think they've split up.
Right. Well, we know that some of them went to look um
Ezra.
for Ezra. And the thing is, everybody's all pumped about it. It's like we don't really know what's going to happen when Thrawn shows back up.
Hmm.
I'm actually not sure now that Thrawn isn't a totally different issue than, like, this show might not deal with Thrawn. I was convinced that Mandalorian was going to deal with Thrawn,
Hmm.
and now I'm not convinced. Now I'm starting to feel like maybe Thrawn is going to be dealing more with something. Maybe they go deal with the Grisk.
Yeah.
That was what Thrawn was always looking for, was for really looking to the Empire for people to help with his fight against the Grisk.
Yeah.
Um, so it's possible that that's where we're going, that we could see our characters more allied with Thrawn than against.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that now that we know Moff Gideon is alive,
Yeah.
I think that changes things. So we'll have to see. Not sure where all that's going to go. It's also possible that it was Thrawn that broke Gideon out.
Yeah. Although I did kind of feel like towards the end of Rebels, they were kind of setting, like, because they kind of set up Thrawn as a little more like he was still the antagonist, and he was still not likable, but he was becoming more a character that you felt like if the circumstances changed, they might could work together.
Yeah, well, let's not forget that Timothy Zahn has never been fully on the same page with Filoni and crew on their use of the character. Which is, I think he has mixed feelings about what has been done with the character. Not that they're totally, he had some input, but I don't know that on his own that's what he would have done with the character. I think that when I want to know what Zahn would have done, I go back to the books. Because that's the thing. They're going to use Thrawn and they don't have to go to Timothy Zahn for any input.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. So
he's the man.
I was afraid for a good couple of minutes that they were going to kill Carson Teva at the end of this episode.
I mean, I was pretty sure that that's where that was
going. That would have been bad. Like, I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Carson Teva goes and visits the Mandalorians. Because R5D4, the hero of the rebellion, is there among the Mandalorians. So it's really funny. Like the glow up for R5 is pretty funny. But we get him show up there and make a plea to Din Djarin, that they can't do anything about it.
I love how he's like, I don't expect you to do anything about it. I just thought you'd want to know.
Yeah.
Bye. No. Like, subtle. Real subtle.
Right. Just thought you'd want to know your friend's going to die if you don't do something.
That's just.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's. I think they're building up that character to do other things, because I feel like they've really gone out of their way to make him increasingly a sympathetic character.
Oh, I think that 100% when we were getting ready to do Rangers of the New Republic, I'm 100% convinced he was part of that. I think it was him. I think it was Cara Dune, obviously. I think it was probably Bill Burr's character, and probably Cobb Vanth, some of those characters. And I really kind of hope they still come around and do something with those characters. But
I enjoyed Cara Dune's character, but I don't think that it's like, oh no, there's no show if there's no her.
Right.
I still think that
there was still enough characters there to do something. So I don't know. That'll be interesting. And the thing is it wasn't like everybody thinks that there's no possibility of her ever coming back. Like, at some point that may, we've
hired James Gunn.
We've had companies bring people back that have done horrible things. And the truth is that she just said something. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't say anything that was wrong. She just said it at the wrong time and place.
Didn't read the room very well.
Right.
The
thing is like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, well, she shouldn't have said it. Like, she didn't say anything wrong. However, it did come at a cost.
Yeah.
And that's life. That's what happens when you open your mouth. Even if you speak truth, you can still get punished for it.
And that's what, and also, I think that there were a lot of people who were looking to construe what she was saying in the worst possible way.
Oh, 100%.
But the thing is, whenever that starts,
these are the same people that are attacking Zachary Levi now.
Right. The thing is though, when you double down on it, whenever all that's in the firefight of that, it doesn't end well.
Yeah.
Um,
Nick's right. Hera probably could play a big role in that. And
yeah.
that could be something that we could see come back around
Hmm.
later. I don't know. I'm not
I mean,
sure with this
like I
new.
said, Disney rehired James Gunn.
Here's what I kind of want to see though. Whether it has whether Cara Dune's character is brought back or not. Like we have enough other characters still do this show. But I think now we've created a version of the Republic where what good, I mean, like unless we have this group of Republic, Rangers of the New Republic who were just kind of like they just they don't answer really have to answer to anyone.
Yeah.
They're just out there doing it on their own. Then I don't see how you do it now.
Yeah, because I think they pretty much just have to be vigilantes.
So I
They're
would
like,
almost
screw it.
rather see some group of just purely rogue, a rogue element that's not associated with the Republic
Hmm.
that kind of become the peacekeepers of the Outer Rim.
Hmm.
I still think you've got all the characters there to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't work as well with like Hera, although I think it could. That's what they were for years.
Hmm.
Um, but Carson Tava leaves. We get a plea. So this is where I was talking about earlier. We're seeing multiple people stepping up. What this looks like at the end, and we know that I don't think Favreau has any intention of ending this story anytime real soon. So I think we're going to see it take its time to flesh out. But um, we're seeing multiple people stepping into sort of leadership roles within this community. The armor is obviously has been the kind of de facto leader. As I think it's interesting, it reminds me a lot of Germanic and Norse groups where like you might have a king, but you also have a priest
Hmm.
who's wields almost as much authority, in some cases more
Hmm.
than the king. And so I do think that that's a really interesting element there where she's I don't think she well, she could be setting up, we're going to reunite Mandalore and then I'm going to take the dark saber from you.
Hmm.
We could be setting that up. I
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
don't think we are at this point.
Hmm.
I think we've actually made her the voice of reason in this
Which is not what I
episode.
expected.
No. Um, but it may be again, it could be that she's the voice of reason for now.
Hmm.
Um, so we don't know.
Yeah.
But we see Paz Vizsla, Din Djarin, Bo-Katan in the armor, all kind of stepping into leadership roles. We see Din Djarin making a plea to this covert
Hmm.
um, to go help the people of Navarro,
Hmm.
and tells them about this tract of land he's been promised.
Hmm.
And what he's not just this is not a simple plea. This is a thing that changes the path.
Hmm. It changes our trajectory
You're right. It changes.
culturally.
Right. This is a big cultural change. This is what I've been saying was going to happen, that this was going to be a calling of the Mandalorians back into the light, out of
Hmm.
hiding.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that, so we see his plea,
Hmm.
we see him backed up by Paz Vizsla,
Hmm.
who basically says, why should we do this? Why should we risk our lives? And so, because we're Mandalorians.
Yes, it's what we do.
Right. Um,
Because it reminds me of Hiro Nakamura from the first couple of seasons of Heroes.
yeah.
Because that's what heroes do, you know?
um,
That show, man.
but we do
It's
get
gonna be so good.
we get another good this season. One of the things that I've been missing in Star Wars has been good dog fights,
Yeah.
especially in the TV shows. We're just not doing it. We haven't had occasion. um I kind of hope that maybe the Spinward Patrol at a Delphi base could become a
Hmm.
sort of you know we have the X-wing books sitting out there, some of the better expanded universe books.
Hmm.
Use that group
Hmm.
and let's tell this story.
Yeah.
Tell some of those stories. I think that could be a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know what that sound was. I don't know if I want to know. But we're getting good dogfight action
Hmm.
sequences. We get another one here The N1 is a little OP,
Yeah, but it's cool.
but it is cool. Um, but the N1 is cool, but I really like the Comeric
I still
class
think it's
ships.
hilarious that
Well,
Bo Katan is
that's what
just
the
flying around in a troop transport. It's like, and my
well,
personal car is a tank.
it's a minivan. It's taking the whole team to the game. Um, but no, I mean that's the one of the ships we've seen primarily used by the Mandalorians as the Comeric class fighter slash troop transport.
It's a well armed troop transport.
Yeah. So
It's so much like the Republic troop transports were so bulky, like, and so it's crazy that one is just, it's a completely different animal.
yeah.
You can never see those Republic troop transports doing anything that exciting. They just kind of
Um,
wander in there.
but we get good action with the N1 versus the pirate snub fighters. I don't know if they've actually told us what those fighters are. If they did, I missed it. Um, the lures away the bigger ship, and we get Mandalorians dropping in to begin their assault on the town. So we get good aerial action. We get good boots on the ground action. The Anzellans are hysterical.
And that deadgum armor with those hammers. Talk about
Well, that
lightning.
was
Wow.
the two. Of course, we
Uh-huh.
get our Mandalorians kind of boxed in the streets, and first you get Paz Vizsla. We talked about earlier. We talked about he finally gets his kind of big hero moment to drop in and clear the street there. And but the armor assaulting the gunner's nest is
With a hammer.
well, that's all we've ever seen her use as a
I
weapon.
know, but she really owned it.
It's the third one. The first, well, maybe the fourth one. The first several, the guy she throws the hammer and hits in the face, but then the next one she grabs him by the back of the neck with the tongs.
Yeah. The tong, that was the crazy thing. It was like not just the hammer, but the tongs. It was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's something.
I mean, it's a hammer that can be used to forge Beskar, so it's clearly a pretty serious thing to get. I mean, yeah, everybody pretty much goes down in one hit with that thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, the fight scene's a lot of fun, but of course, the moments we got to talk about are what follow. The first being what we already talked a little bit about is Grief Karga giving this large tract of land to the Mandalorians to begin to build a new home for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is going to be an important kind of step for them. Not living in the sewers anymore, coming out into, to not be in hiding is a big step.
Right. Um, I did appreciate, it's from the Western Lava Flats to Bullet Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Bullet Canyon is a nod to our original Mandalorian, Jeremy Bullock. Um, that was cool. Jeremy, of course, he passed away a year or two ago, and so that was a really really cool nod to the original Boba Fett actor. And
Yeah,
uh,
that seems like.
well, some of them there are shots that show clearly a lot more than that. And then there are scenes that show, and I assume that's just I know dealing with extras on a set is kind of a pain in the butt anyway. But it also looks like some of the people never made it out of the city
Yeah,
and presumably could have gone other places as well.
and
So
the sewers potentially.
yeah, so I don't know. It doesn't bother me, but yeah, there are a few scenes where it's like, man, there doesn't seem like there's very many here, and then there's other shots
Yeah.
where it's like there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, it wasn't very. I feel like the continuity was a little bit all over the place, just depending on how many they wanted in this shot. It's like Yeah, but like the way you're shooting it, it looks like they should all be there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
That could have been a little bit. I think that they could have managed that a little better.
So I think the thing is we've, given this look that the city's growing and everything, but the truth is there were probably like 20 extras, and we used them to make it seem like there were a lot more people until we had to do one shot, a big wide shot, and then you can see that there's really not that many. Now some of them were still in town too, because we see the guy getting abused, bringing out the food, getting abused by the pirates, and some people would have gone to their own homes to hide. So I don't know. It is inconsistent. It doesn't bother me. I don't think it means anything, but it's an inconsistency for sure. All right. So the big moment of this is, of course, the armorer requesting that Bo-Katan remove her helmet.
Yeah, that was a really interesting plot choice.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they've made such a big deal over the helmet thing, like to the point when it was just getting to be a bit much. True. They needed more Q-tips for this episode.
Yeah. So we get the story, the analogy with the forge, where she talks about the forge on Mandalore, the big forge, the forge. She talks about the singing of 100 hammers and how ornate the forge was, and then she talks about, and this is our forge. It's simple. It's not elaborate. It's, but it has the same purpose. It's still a forge. And I think this is her, this is her acknowledgement of it's time, she says it's time for all Mandalorians to come together. And she knows that because she knows they're a fringe group among Mandalorians. We can't do this if we're going to say, like, we're the most dogmatic group and everybody's got to do the things the way we do it for us to all, before we can all come together. And of course, this is where I was saying, this is where surprisingly the armorer becomes the voice of reason here. And that, she's saying that Bo-Katan has walked in both worlds. She understands both worlds and respects both worlds. And I think that was the thing. I think at this point, Bo-Katan has shown enough respect towards them for the armorer to trust her. Because we left off last episode going, does the armorer actually believe her about the mythosaur?
Yeah.
And I don't even know if the armorer still believes that the mythosaur is real.
I think she does, because she says, I was raised to believe it was only existed in legend.
Right.
And honestly, I think that that's part of the reason because Bo-Katan was not adhering to her version of the creed, right? She was not adhering to the Watch's version of the creed whenever she saw the mythosaur. She basically attached herself to the Watch after that. But the fact that this mystical experience was had by someone who didn't follow the rules, I think is significant.
Yeah. So Rose, right. It's going to be very interesting to see how that search goes, especially given what we're going to learn in the last scene of this episode. But
well, we know they're not in Castle Kreese.
Right. Yeah. So
I don't think they're on Concord and Dawn at all.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of planets in Mandalorian space, and it's like, which planets are still heavily inhabited and which aren't, or are they all just scattered and living as kind of moving group?
It's a dysphoria,
yeah. Uh-oh.
Oh.
Hello there.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up?
Hey guys, I'm just driving around, so I figured I'd follow your link, see what's happening.
Nice.
Good.
How's it going?
It's going great. I just played a wedding, and I'm heading home now.
I like playing weddings sometimes.
Yeah, this one was a little stressful. Originally they asked if I could play ukulele for the recessional song "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." I'm like, yeah, of course, it's great. And then play piano for the rest of it, the prelude and all of that, and all the other songs. Like, yep. And then about 2 weeks ago, they're like, oh, they want you to play ukulele for the whole thing. And I'm like, okay. So flash forward to last night, when I, kind of trying to put it all together, and several of the songs they wanted, the bride walked into the Jurassic Park theme. Then Can't Help Falling in Love, which, okay, that's pretty standard. And then, when of course, Wonderful World. Over the Rainbow. But just, I'm not a ukulele player. I can strum and sing stupid songs, but like playing 30 minutes of like, and it's all instrumental. So it's like you've got to play melodies and all that with 4 strings ukulele. So anyway, so long story short, or longer, I guess. Sorry guys, I just basically ruined your night here. Sorry. This is why I don't do live stuff, because I've got to have a script and I've got to edit it down or put everybody to sleep with my stories. But anyway, so I had an app a while back, or a good patch, a ukulele patch, a sample. And so I kind of went through it all last night. And so, except for the final song, I used my little MIDI controller and kind of made it sound like a ukulele, because I'm up in the balcony. It's a chapel, and so nobody can see me. So I lucked out on that. There wasn't the visual. So anyway, so I pulled it off. And,
oh, wow, that's fun. Yeah, I played a wedding recently, and they wanted the Pirates of the Caribbean theme for the recessional.
Yeah, nice.
I played Star Wars for a recessional too, for a wedding a couple of
Yep, I've done it. I did the one wedding. A friend of mine, he did the what is it? The celebration scene at the end of A New Hope.
Oh yeah.
The medals. That was awesome. It's like it really was great.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, but I just don't think the Imperial March was the best for his wife walking down. But
on the ukulele.
But I couldn't figure out the Jurassic Park. Maybe they just think it's beautiful and all, but I don't know. It's just interesting for the bride. Like I could see maybe like have it played in the prelude, but like no, that's what
for the bride. I mean, it is beautiful.
It is. It brought a tear to my eye playing the fake uke. So
bride comes in one of those inflatable dinosaur costumes.
Now, see, yeah, like I wanted to. I wasn't allowed, but I really wanted to have my friend interrupt my wedding dressed completely as Darth Vader and say, Luke, I'm your father. And then I was going to say, I'm Cam. And then he'd say, oh, sorry, wrong wedding. And then back out. Like, I think that'd be perfect. A little humor. He's gone. You get back to the seriousness of it, but nope. Like, that plan was scrapped. So that's a $2,000 Darth Vader costume just gone to waste. But anyway.
That's I know. Brides, they're just the worst.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, Cam, what are you thinking about this season of The Mandalorian?
Well, I talked to Ro just a little bit yesterday about it, kind of mentioned, and we kind of had similar thoughts on it. Just it feels different, and I don't know, and it may be, is it because it's coming off of Andor that it feels a little more kind of hokey or not? It feels like it doesn't have its footing, and I'm not like Ro where I just hate any kind of humor at all in Star Wars, like give me my boring science fiction with no, not a single, but I don't know, something, I'm loving it. Don't get me wrong, but it does have a different feel than the first and the second season. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. And I thought maybe it feels a little more cartoony because we're coming right off of the grittiness of Andor. I don't know, but I'm kind of leaning towards the whole, like, I was kind of a little more excited about Bad Batch this week, I think, than Mandalorian. But I'm also excited to see where it goes now that I'm super confused with the whole the helmet thing. Load of Star Wars will come out tomorrow, so I'll touch on that a little bit. But,
you have some thoughts on it there, huh?
Yeah, you can call it a thought, I guess, or lack of. I don't know. In between actual thoughts, but I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but I think, who was it mentioned? David Jesse, Tatooine Sons. He mentioned like maybe it's leading towards Bo Katan being the Mandalorian, and I kind of like that idea because, especially with Filoni being involved, I think it's like it seems like everything like goes back to like tying in the animated series. So
Yeah, no, I think there's still a strong chance that Bo-Katan becomes the leader of the Mandalorians by the time it's all said and done.
I think it makes sense, you know.
I was kind of thinking about this, especially so with Marvel, they've kind of gone where like the first season was Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you know, and then they'll do and they're not necessarily doing exactly the same title for all of them. And I wonder if they might like it might actually retitle as the Mandalorians at some point. What you think?
Oh,
Are that?
They could. I don't think they will, but they could.
yeah.
Be interesting, especially since it's becoming more, because it definitely is becoming more of an ensemble thing. You know,
Yeah.
definitely a lot more of just like, you know, the Mandalorians as a whole. And I think we will continue to kind of, you know, because Din Djarin is kind of our unless for some reason, you know, Pedro Pascal leaves, then they can always change their plans. But I hope that we don't completely lose our Mando and Grogu dynamic. I do want to keep that at least a little bit.
I like the idea of bringing in like an Ahsoka, but then they kind of go off and then kind of finish that story elsewhere. Maybe he's kind of just the thread where he's traveling the galaxy, and then you'll bring in these different elements. I don't know, but
yeah, and I think you're right. I think that this has kind of been the place where they've kind of introduced a lot of things that they're going to use other places.
Well, this could diverge into two separate shows.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, well, there you. Yeah, well, didn't someone say Gorian? What is it? Chard? What's his name? The
Gorian Shard, the Pirate
seaweed
King.
salad dude. Like, isn't he like the main bad guy in the Skeleton Crew show, or is that just speculation, or is that confirmed?
I did hear something. There was at least mention of pirates. And I don't know if it's Gorian Shard. You know, of course, he's dead now, but Vane is still out there.
But when is Skeleton Crew taking place, though? Isn't that like
I think maybe
timeline?
Yeah, I think maybe closer to season 1 of The Mandalorian.
Okay, but it's still well, then he would be alive. He would be like in his prime, maybe then.
Yeah.
As the leader of the pirate group. So.
Okay, so I like DJ's pitch here. We get a whole Brady Bunch panel with different Mandalorians. I think that's an excellent plan. It's the story.
All right, now I've got to make a video of that. Oh my
god. Is the armor Alice?
Yes.
Oh.
The youngest one with a helmet.
Let's see. The DJ says he figured out who the armorer is last night. That's one that most of my theories have gone out the window on that. So
yeah. So you figured out who she is?
DJ says that he did.
Okay, he just said.
He said
Rookcast.
Rookcast has been one of the big theories for a while. Probably the most prevalent theory has been Rookcast.
Who is this?
She was somebody we saw in Rebels with Bo-Katan.
Oh, okay, yeah. Interesting.
So yeah.
Hey, did we ever find out what happened to the Kreese boy?
No.
Rookie?
No.
Huh. Like, surely he's got to show up eventually, right?
You would think. I mean, you'd think they would continue that somehow, but maybe not.
I mean, he's got to be on your Brady Bunch list right there, right?
The Roe asked, are they going to go back to reviving IG-11? My suspicion is we'll get IG-11 back at the end of the season.
I mean, I feel like they spent almost an entire episode, and that's pretty much all they did. Like, surely it's only 8 episodes in this season.
Well, isn't that what he and Grogu were supposed to be doing this whole time? Is finding that part?
Right.
Like they kind of dropped that. It's like he went off on his whole other thing. So
they said like they kind of acted like he was supposed to go find it, and then as he's leaving, Grief Karga tells him if anybody can find it, the Anzellans can. And so it's like I don't know if they're supposed to be looking for the part or if the Anzellans are just going to find the part.
You can't find her or whatever. And then he was like, he said, I know someone and where I can find it. And then he took off. But
it seemed like a little bit of a strain because they like made this whole story about like how because we needed a droid to go to Mandalore, but we need this droid.
Yeah.
And so, but then we're like, never mind, just got a different droid, did it without you.
Right.
So, like, but
why?
So
why kind of a throwaway. Yeah.
seems like a lot of trouble to have gone through.
Yeah, but that's kind of Filoni's storytelling method, though, right? Or like we set things up and we go, "Where's that
Forget about
going?"
that.
And then like 2 seasons later, he goes, "Oh, by the way."
That thing.
Yeah, everything is fair game. It's like, and not it. You're not going to get an answer right away.
Right.
But I like that though, because I don't feel like we're being gypped. I don't think there's going to be many throwaway lines. I think
Right.
it's just people are so impatient. It's just, man, the streaming age is awful. Like,
Yeah, and when you just get 8 episodes at a time,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we don't have to wait as long for season 4 as we did for 3, because it was a really long time.
Yeah.
I just hope we don't have any like crazy loudmouth conservatives who are working on the set, like any main characters or anything. I hope Grogu doesn't learn to talk and it turns out like a major trumper or something. It's rude then. Like, what are you going to do? Bring in Babu Frick, I guess, because that's the second cutest little character we got.
Right. We just brought in a whole bunch of new Anzellans, so
Yeah.
we could just do So
Or bring in Grattle, Grogu's little clone sister that we haven't learned about yet. I would love for there to be an evil Grattle character. They're kind of alluding to it in that batch,
Yeah.
So why not bring in his like evil twin?
Oh, that would be so funny. Yeah.
I'm all about it. Let's go full on Gremlins. Like they already said, they stolen from the Gremlins. So it's like, all right, we'll completely steal it. So
You might as well. I mean,
instead of Stripe, we'll have Polka Dot or something.
yeah.
Like one little tuft here at the top.
Right.
Yeah. I always that was always just Grattle. I love that. That's my new favorite thing. Grattle.
All right, so let's talk real quick about that final scene and that reveal there. That's the only thing we really hadn't gotten to. As I said, I was really worried for a few minutes they were fixing to kill Carson Teva, which
yeah,
I would not have been excited about.
No, not at all.
But what did y'all think about that scene? Like, I mean, obviously we get the nod. This was obviously Gideon's ship. We finally get a confirmation that he's still out there somewhere. And then we find a shard of Beskar inside the ship, embedded in the wall. So there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
Is it a setup? I mean, who busted him out? Was it Mandalorians or was it Thrawn or just his own people? I mean, at this point, it could have been his own people working inside the New Republic.
Well, it could also be. We know that the Empire has they stole all the Beskar.
Well, that's why I was wondering. Like, why does that mean it's Mandalorians just because there's Beskar?
Right.
And what happened to the Beskar staff that Din had? Am I just forgetting?
They melted that down.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's right.
To make
because it was
chain link, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because they were specifically the armor tells him this was a weapon made for killing Mandalorians.
That's right. Yep. Okay. I was just trying to figure out if there's some way that got into other hands. So, but I mean, that's like assuming like all Beskar is only in possession of the Mandalorians, and so
It's clearly not. I mean, that's how a large part of the first season centers around a payment of a large amount of Beskar.
Yeah.
So and it's got an Imperial stamp on it, so that seems like a very weird thing.
Right.
Well, and this is so DJ says this is where his theory comes into play, and I think I know where he's going with this. Is there were Mandalorians that were loyal to the Empire?
Well, that's true. We're only we're watching this one little cult, and we know there are others, and like, what's her name? The wrestler chick. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are still a lot of Mandalorians out there. So it is possible, and he did wield the Darksaber for a time. So not only were some of them loyal to the Empire, he wielded the Darksaber for a time. So it might be that he was broken out by Mandalorians, but it also might be a ploy to kind of make the New Republic not fully trust what's going on with the Mandalorians right now too.
Right. Okay, so here's
Right.
DJ's. So
Well-
DJ's theory is that it's the armorer.
Yeah, he
Oh.
thinks that Cast is the armor, that the armor is the one involved here.
That broke it. That's an I mean, that could definitely be interesting. I feel like they're kind of setting her up to be a little more sympathetic than that, but that doesn't mean that it's not a what do they call it whenever they like angle you? They like make you think misdirect. Misdirect could be a misdirect. Yeah.
A twisty turny.
Yes. Twisty turny story. I don't know. It'll be really interesting. So here's another thought. So all of that initially, that Beskar came from Moff Gideon, right? So Moff Gideon or whoever he's working for from in the first season that they were paying for a child came from Moff Gideon. So Moff Gideon's people have a cache, apparently a sizable cache of Beskar.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that maybe it's tied up there.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing is, what does that shard of Beskar represent?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that there are Mandalorians still serving the Empire, or is it totally to build mistrust between different groups of Mandalorians, or between the Mandalorians and the New Republic?
I don't
He's
think
trying to set them up.
Either way, I think it was intended to make the Mandalorians. When eventually it was found, I think it was intended to throw suspicion on the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Well, we know, and then there's Elia Kane, which they're building her character quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
She's in touch with Moff Gideon, and so I can totally see it being one of those, the big scheme going on. You got to bring down the Mandalorians. Blame them for whatever they're doing, and so you take the eyes off of what they're doing within the new. At some point, how that works, but they've got to kind of take the eyes off of.
Ooh, Cam, I don't know if you're driving through a dead spot or what, but we're really losing you, buddy.
It's a dead spot.
Something about a dead spot. I guess that was confirmation of your theory about a dead spot.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go on and wrap up. Cam, thank you so much for stopping in, though. And I'd love to get you back on and talk some more Mandalorian sometime.
Once you get out of your dead spot.
All right. So, any more theories before we wrap up for the night? I mean, I think we pretty much covered it, but so the shard of Beskar is, of course, the big thing right now. Like, what does it represent? Like, I don't know what would cause a Mandalorian being there to have just left a shard of Beskar in the wall, unless it was some sort of weapon that was left in the wall, or I don't know.
That'll be interesting.
But I'm excited to see where it's going. This may have been my favorite episode of the season. They're really ramping up, and I do think there's a possibility that at some point this show becomes more about the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Oh, there he's back.
It came back.
There we go.
Uh-oh. He's let's see.
Oh, he's muted. There he is. There we go. Try again.
Hello?
There you are.
Hello.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Sorry, yeah, I'm in the middle of the country now, so it's
Okay.
pretty much about to be out of all connection. So,
Will you tell people where they can find you?
but hey, yeah, sure. Head on over to Camray Semi Productions on YouTube, or Camray Semi Productions on TikTok, or Camray on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. Yes, it's our
or Facebook, where I found out people are really rude on Facebook.
All right.
And you've got a new video dropping tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I've got a video, and then I also have. Well, I can't tell you too much, but I also have a new commercial coming out tomorrow, and so it'll be alluded to in the video, and then the commercial will come out shortly after. So
awesome! Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I'm glad I got to hop on and chat some Mandalorian with y'all.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll get you back on sometime real soon. But Marisha, until next time, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. If you want to see old things. And I am princesses _and_ Padawans on Instagram, and a couple of times a month I am P Padawans on Twitter.
Okay, you can find me running the Twitter account for this show at crew_podcast. That's CRU_podcast. You can drop us a line at the sciencefictionary@gmail.com, and you can find both of our podcasts, the Science Fictionary and Coruscant Radio Underground, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can also find us, as well as all of the rest of the Red 5 Podcast Network, at Red 5 Network on Twitter. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.